Hey everybody, and welcome back to ASH-PHALT, a podcast all about life on the road. I'm your host, Ash Taylor, and today I am very excited to be joined by Justin Rasik. Justin is the Executive Vice President of 22Zero, and he is also a U.S. Army veteran. So Justin, how are you? Thank you so much for being here.
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you. And before we get too deep in our conversation, I was just going to say, I know you and I have actually gotten to know each other a little bit before in the past. Proud to be an ambassador for 22Zero and just love what you guys do. And I'm happy to have you here. I also want to be sure, though, to make a big point to actually thank you for your service so much before we actually get diving in.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an honor to be able to serve your country. I think anybody who has the ability to do so should. Even for some extent of time. But yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, to kind of get things going, can you please maybe just start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from and just tell us about you.
Yeah, for sure. So like you said, I'm a Army combat veteran. I joined right out of high school, right? So graduated, went right into the service. Everybody, going to this college, you're going to this thing is like, Justin's going to the service. So went to the Army, right straight into boot camp, all that kind of stuff. Was in there for a while, and then got deployed to Afghanistan for a year. My wife and I actually got married 2 weeks prior to my deployment. So it was kind of like one of those like, bye. And I literally spent our first year 8,000 miles apart from each other. And we are still married today, now over 20 years later, which is pretty cool. So deployed to Afghanistan for a year. It was an interesting experience. We can definitely dive more into what it's like to be deployed and kind of living in a totally different country and all of that kind of stuff. And then what it's like to come back after a whole year and everything else. It's really different than probably a lot of your listeners get to experience. And so I came back and, fast forward through many years of dealing with PTS and mental health and anxiety and all of the fun stuff that you get to, all the souvenirs you never asked for when you came home from combat, right? Tried a bunch of different therapies, tried a bunch of different stuff, went to the VA, private practice, tried a ton of different things. I thought I tried everything, to be very candid. And 17 years later, so from coming home from deployment and 17 years dealing with this, all that kind of stuff, 22Zero found me. And I say it that way specifically. I wasn't looking for them. I didn't even know they existed. I just happened to be at this military weekend that they were at. And there was this, I know for listeners who've heard the previous, Dr. Pam Arnell was there. She was doing a talk at that military weekend. It was like PTSD and anxiety or something like that. And I was like, well, yeah, that's right up my alley. I might as well go check this out. And as it turned out, I was able to, go through the process there on site. And from that moment forward, it completely changed my life, right? I started living my life again. I started, really experiencing life again, and an incredible opportunity for me to do this. And I came home, and I live right behind Magic Kingdom. Like I live in Central Florida, and every single night I was triggering off of fireworks prior to that, right? So, Magic Kingdom's fireworks would go off, and I'd hear them at my house right before bed, and they would trigger. So I was like, okay, the real test is after that weekend coming home and seeing what happened, because I knew that was like clockwork, it would happen. And that first night they were going off while I was falling asleep, which normally would have pulled me right out of bed. And I kept falling asleep for the first time ever that I could remember. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. So I called up, the person who ran me through at 22Zero, and I was like, how often do I got to do this? Like, I'm a total believer. This is amazing. Like, how often do I get it? I'm thinking it's like a massage or something like that, right? Like you got to kind of keep it up like once a month or even talk therapy, right? Come once a week or something. They're like, you're done. I'm like, what do you mean I'm done? And they're like, you're done. You don't have to do this anymore. Like all your past is cleared. And I was like, oh, I want to do this. Like, how do I do this? Right. So they're like, well, we have a training coming up. Can you clear your schedule? And I was like, you bet. And it was like literally like a week or two later. Like it was so fast. Completely cleared my schedule, went through the training, became a peer coach. That was about 3 years ago now, and have since, become executive vice president for 22Zero, and really all just to pay it forward, right? They gave me my life back in a way that I probably can never repay them for. So my best way of doing that is to pay it forward, is to serve and help others, other veterans, first responders, the family members we get to serve. That's my way of giving back. And to date, I don't keep track of the exact number, because it's not about, I've helped so many people, right? It's the person I'm working with. But realistically, it's probably within the hundreds of people that I've worked with to date. And tons of great stories, tons of amazing things. And just because I had that experience, went through the training, and want to pay it forward.
Wow. You have such an amazing, inspiring story. And I'm just so happy for you, though, that you found 22Zero, that you were able to, just change your life, and like I said, we've kind of known each other now for a while, and I've been blessed to be able to hear your story. And every time I hear it, though, I'm just like so blown away. So I'm happy for you, but also just love your attitude and how you're literally just flipping it around, and you're just helping the next person in line that needs it. And we could use some more people like you, Justin. That is for sure.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because if you got the part of the story where I dealt with this for 17 years, I went through all of your standard care processes, right? I went through the VA, I went through talk therapy, I paid out of pocket when the VA wasn't able to get me in. Like, and listen, I got nothing against the VA specifically, but they're overwhelmed. They have way too many people to serve and not enough people to serve them, right? Like, I totally get that. But I tried everything. And I wasn't even looking for this. I thought my only options were, as I was told for 17 years, learn to live with it, learn to live with your post-traumatic stress. And I was like, I just can't accept that reality. Like, that's not a place that I want to spend the rest of my life, right? Like, that's a hard place to be at. So for anybody who is a veteran, first responder, family member, people that 22Zero serves, if you've tried a bunch of stuff and you're like, I've tried everything, and you haven't tried this, I highly encourage you to do so, because it is completely different. We can go into part of the process as much as you want, but the reality is it's not, it's the most powerful thing that I've ever been a part of, been able to facilitate and go through. Just a real quick kind of around what the people go through, just so they can understand it. It's 2 to 4 sessions only. Right? On average, that's it. 2 to 4 sessions. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about 8-hour sessions either. It's like an hour, maybe 2, right? For a session. And we don't have you talk about the events. You don't have to relive that experience. That was one of the worst things when I went through talk therapy, that every time I sat down to talk to somebody, it was, okay, now relive and tell me your entire stories and all the times that traumas happened and this and that. And you're literally reliving those moments time after time after time, which just means you're reliving those traumas time after time after time. They're keeping it super fresh, super refreshed in your mind. That's not a great place to be. So this was the easiest and most effective process I've ever had. I've only had the one session that I had in person. It was like 2 hours long, but I only needed the one session. That was 3 years ago, and I have not needed a single one followed up since there. I don't trigger anymore. I still live in the same house. Fireworks go off every single night, and I sleep like a baby. It's fantastic.
Wow. No, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, thank you for joining. Like, that's the thing though. It's like, by you sharing that, I think so often in our culture, we're really told like, man, this thing should work, or you're just going to have to live with it, or you just got to push through. And it's like, I love the attitude of like, I'm not going to accept that. And so it just shows though, it's like living proof that it works. I wanted to ask you too, for those that are not familiar with the number. So what does 22Zero mean? What does it stand for? Can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So 22 is, and this has been a few years now, but it was the published numbers that 22 veterans per day commit suicide. And our goal is to take that number from 22 down to 0, right? So very simple in our title, very simple in what we're doing. I'll be very candid. I was on my way to becoming one of those 22, right? To be dealing with what I dealt with for 17 years, being told by medical professional after medical professional, you're going to learn to live with this. You have to learn to, that's a hard reality to accept. And after 17 years, you start to wonder, is this really the way it's going to be? Um, Not that I wanted to, but that almost looked like an easy out, right? After dealing with everything that I've dealt with for the time. So, so blessed to 22 in the process and being able to go through it. Like I said, it's, when I say it changed my life, it literally changed my life. It saved it,
Yeah.
without exaggeration.
Yeah. And well, we're grateful. We're grateful you're here today. Grateful for 22 That's why I had Dr. Arnell and now you on, and, hopefully just bring awareness to this. I know we have
Yeah.
a lot of veterans and, what it does to the family too. I think that's something really important to touch on. Can you maybe share a little bit about how, this has affected your family, or, seeing other people in their families go through this?
No, it's an incredibly fair point, right? When you think of, people who go through this process, who are dealing with the internal struggles, we'll call it that. And I call it internal struggles. It's not just trauma. It's not just PTS, right? There's negative emotions that go along with it. And 22 also supports those, right? So things like anger or frustration or whatever the case may be, right? So, and it's boiling right up here at the top. Like it's just right at the top of you're not processing what's happening. And I use this example all the time with with the people I work with, right, to kind of help them understand, what do I mean by that? And this kind of ties right into what you're saying. So I have two teenage children, right, and love them to death. They're incredible, but my anger was up here, right? It was a 10, I was just boiling at the top of it. So, for an example, nighttime, hey guys, can we get the dishes done type of thing, right? And they're on their phones, totally ignoring you, blowing you off, just as teenagers do. Now, old Justin, full on drill sergeant mode, get it done, right? Never hit my children. I would never physically hurt, but like yelling top of my lungs, just totally frustrated, totally, overreacting to the situation. Today, Justin is, hey, I see you're on your phones. In the next 5 or 10 minutes, can we find a stopping point and go ahead and get the dishes done? Same exact situation. My reaction is the difference, right? So when you think about that, and that's just a snapshot of a moment within time, but you think about that, you think about people who are dealing with PTS, who are triggered and going through that process, they retreat a lot of times. They fall back into old patterns. And if you're dealing with things like night terrors and your spouse is in the bed with you and you're screaming, you're yelling, or you're swinging your, like, all of these things are stuff. I didn't personally experience that, but I know others who have. And every person's actions has a consequential reaction, right? And when you're talking about the family unit, you're talking about kids or families or spouses or whoever, that makes an impact. I can tell you, after going through the 22 process, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my spouse has never been better. It really hasn't, because it's hard to be there for others when you're dealing with what you're dealing with for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So well said, so well said. And I think that is something I really admire too about 22 how it's like we definitely heal our heroes, but then also helping the family and just making that for a great community and a great union. So I absolutely love that. I would love to kind of switch gears a little bit, and if you're open to sharing with us, though, a little bit about your time being deployed. Here we're all about life on the road, and I have so much respect for people who have served our country, and I feel like the way that I can serve is kind of by having folks like you and Dr. Arnell and so many others on. And I love traveling around the country, playing at military bases. We were just at like Fort Campbell playing a show. I love to support in that way, and that's how I serve my country, is by hopefully helping and serving folks like yourself. I would love for you to share, though, a little bit about what it is like being deployed. It also sounds like you had a very interesting set of circumstances with getting married and heading on out. So could you share a little bit about what that is like being deployed to a different country?
Yeah. I mean, so, coming from America, right, where you've got, all the modern luxuries of life, if you will, right, and going to Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, now, not on our base specifically, like our bases had some of those modern luxuries, but you'd go to the villages and you'd meet with the elders, or you'd meet with these individuals, and, you'd walk in and like the elder is like the the big person, right? Like they have like all of the power and all the stuff within their village and whatnot. And you go into their house and there's no door. It's just like a drape across the door. There's no windows, right? It's just, again, more drapes across it. There's no flooring, right? There's no running water. It's literally just like essentially a mud building with no windows, no doors, mats and stuff on the floor, essentially what you're sleeping on. So it's an incredibly poor country, right? So I think there was a couple of things that were really big to me going into the new country. One, you get really well trained as a soldier. You know what your job is. You know what to do. Everything kind of almost becomes muscle memory, right? So the hardest part is being away from your family. It's being away from your familiarity and things that you're used to being around. But you're surrounded by your buddies, and they become your family. And this is, I think, part of the reason why when you talk about, people in the military, they really do refer to the people they deployed with as their brothers and sisters. Like I still today, 20 years later, still talk to my buddies on a very regular basis, right? We don't live near each other, but we're constantly texting each other. We'll go on different trips together. Just, we are as close as I am to any of my, blood relatives that I have here in the States. It's an incredible bond that I think will probably last our lifetime, right? Like you just get these incredible people you get to choose to be around and be a part of. So, the job itself, it always kind of surprises people when I say this, but the job itself isn't that hard, right? You know what you need to do, you know how you need to do it. The hard part is being away from what you're familiar with, right? And for those, like you said, life on the road, I'm sure that happens to a lot of musicians as well, where it's like, all right, you're packing up and you're going on tour and you are bouncing from city to city and hotel to hotel and place to place, right? But you're not around your kids, maybe you're not around your family, you're not around, even your favorite restaurant, even your favorite places that you like to go to, because it's a different city and a different place and a different, whatever. So I think that was the hardest part for me, right? And especially, like I mentioned, we got married 2 weeks prior to leaving. So it was just 8,000 miles apart. We had to figure out our first year of marriage, which anybody who's married can tell you is not an easy one, that first year. So, and that's why we feel like if we can make it through that, we can make it through anything.
Yeah.
But, we're going around there. But, after you get past that, I think it's diving into the cultural experience, right? Understanding what is it like to live here in this. We had some great interpreters that we would talk to and have real conversations. What's it been like to live in Afghanistan for all these years, right? And if you know any of the history of Afghanistan, it's a war-torn country, right? Like we're not the first conflict to come in there. When we were driving around the countryside, you would see all these Russian tanks and armored, vehicles and all this stuff just kind of left there, right? Like we weren't the first to come in to that country. Probably won't be the last, to be really honest. So, being a part of that community, understanding what it is they're going through, and you also have to understand, people have this in their head, like everybody in Afghanistan is bad. Well, no, that's not the truth, right? You had the Taliban, Al Qaeda, you had bad people that were in the country. The really cool part that we found was when we interacted really well with the locals, they would point out the bad people. They'd be like, they're over there, right? Our guys, the people who came in to relieve us, as a kind of mirror image or mirroring of what we did, or our dichotomy of what we did, was they came in and they're like, everybody's a threat, everybody's thing. And they just, they would keep everybody at bay, and they didn't really want to form the relationships. We're like, you guys really need to form these relationships. They're going to help you more than they will hurt you. And they're kind of fickle, right? They literally turned on those people. Like they knew the difference between their vehicles and ours. So when our vehicles showed up, they would come out and say hi and all the stuff. And when their vehicles showed up, they would retreat back to their homes and things of that nature. And it's really interesting. Just they realized and recognized where you were. So our unit came in with a heavy sense of, this is your home. We are guests here. and we're going to try to learn as much as we can and help you guys and support you as much as we can, and do that in the best way that we can do it. And I think that was an incredibly enlightening experience to go through. Incredibly. When you come home and you're like, I have running water. Like, you don't think about it, right? You walk up to the sink, you hit a thing, and you have running water. Like, that's when you can appreciate the level of comforts that we have here in America, like at the basic level, you really have an appreciation for everything else. You really do.
Wow, that's amazing. You know what I really love about all of that is that you shared how basically just entering though and showing that respect to someone, in a different country, speaks a different language, and just showing respect can really just go such a long way. Yeah. And that's the thing. I love honestly being an American. Super proud of being American. I have been to a couple different countries before, and the last time actually, my husband and I, we went on a cruise to the Bahamas, and we were in the capital and hanging out and stuff, and walking the streets and seeing what wealth in another country looks like was really, really something that kind of hit home. And I literally cried, and I thought, man, I just paid all this money for this vacation, and I was crying on the ship because I'm like, we are so spoiled. I mean, we are so spoiled, such a great country to be from. And I remember when we got back into the port in Miami, we were back on U.S. soil. I remember walking off the boat, and there was this teeny tiny little Cuban guy who worked there. He probably must have been like 4'2", and he was probably in his 80s. And he started singing "God Bless America," and oh my gosh, Justin, so off key. I mean, he was hitting I was like counting the number of keys this guy was going through, and yet I did, and he was so cute. But I mean, he was just singing with his full heart, and I was like, what a guy, man. But you could tell he appreciated it. He knew, he's like, dude, this is the greatest country in the world. And yeah, but I mean, just things like that, that stick with me. And so I just love hearing about your experience, and just thank you for sharing that. I also wanted,
there's no greater, in my opinion, there's no greater education than travel. There really isn't. No. Right. And especially travel to another country, like experience how other people experience life and understand it. And, you may find things that you're like, ooh, I like how they do that. That's really cool. Yeah. And, different to what we do. And there may be things like my experience in one of the fourth poorest countries in the world, and, be like, I come back and go, I appreciate having AC. I appreciate having running water. I appreciate having carpet under my feet. You know what I mean? Like little silly stuff like that. But yeah, there is no greater education than travel. None.
Man, I totally agree. And, that's I think even if you're just traveling in the US, like that's the thing about me being a musician. It's like, we get to go travel all over the place, and even just our states are so different. And we were, it was interesting. We were just actually in Ohio this past weekend. We were playing a music festival out there, and, we were talking about just how different all it is, the restaurants, the different things. And, you also brought up some great points about, when you're in such a different place, whether it be a different country, a different state, it's like, it can be hard to find things that I guess kind of make you feel grounded and sane. Yeah. I'm curious, during your deployment, because that is just such a drastic change to go so far, different country, different everything really. Was there anything that you did or anything that you brought with you to kind of bring home with you, or just something you had that just made you feel grounded?
Yeah. And I love that question, especially for this podcast. You and I have actually we've had multiple conversations, obviously, with other stuff we've worked on, but we haven't actually talked about this. And this is a really cool part about this. So we have talked about, my dad's a musician and singer-songwriter. He, is semi-retired now from the theme parks here in Central Florida. But I grew up listening to him, right? Like that was such a comfort for me. And I mean, when I say literally grew up listening to him, he's been singing my entire life. So I would go to his shows and his, all these different things, and just hang on his words and his guitar playing and all that kind of stuff. So everybody was getting care packages, right, when we were over there. And it was, sometimes it would be some favorite foods or something that could travel that distance and not go spoiled in that time. Sometimes it was like a game or something like that that people wanted, or photos type of thing. For me, it was music. He would send me a lot of different tracks that he would record. He recorded a few others that we would share stories with him, and he'd like create a song about it and send it to us. Of course, my buddies loved it, but that was for me. Like if I ever started getting homesick, that was the thing I would put on. His music, and just that, those vocals and that guitar playing and stuff like that, it was just the most comforting thing for me. And it instantly brought me back home. I could close my eyes and be sitting there in front of him in the living room, just listening to him play as if I wasn't 8,000 miles away in a war country at the moment. So yeah, that was such a cool opportunity to come back. Right. And I think it's important to find that thing, right? Whatever that is, that makes you feel like home, whether it's your favorite blanket or your whatever the case may be, right? If you're traveling, like just have that thing that's like, this is what makes me feel comfortable, and brings me grounded back to where I'm from.
Oh, I absolutely love that story. I mean, I really do. That is so amazing and just so sweet. It makes so much sense though. Cause that's the thing. I mean, I think that's kind of why I got into music, right? Was just, it's powerful, and I mean, it can make you feel so many different emotions and so many different things, but I absolutely love that. That's great.
Well, and it speaks to the soul, right? It really does. It reaches to a deeper spot, within your body that like certain things can't do, right? So for me, it was music. It was always music. And it's specifically my dad's, because that was such a comforting thing. I have my favorite artists. I, of course, would listen to them and have them in my iPod and all that stuff. But to have, my dad's music on there, that was everything I needed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when you got, back to the States after that year in Afghanistan, I want to ask, if I can, how that felt, because I know for me, when I go out on tour and I'm God knows where, and I haven't slept and I'm going through all this stuff or whatever, and I come home, it can sometimes be a really great experience. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming. I see my mail piled up and I see all the things that, I got behind on when I was gone. So I'm curious, in your, experience, what was that like coming home after a year? And was there a place that you went to first where you're like, I got to go here? What was going through your mind?
Yeah. Coming home was very interesting. It was more overwhelming, I think, than comforting, right? So, and what a lot of people don't realize is when you come home from a deployment, you don't come home right away, right? You literally don't get on a plane. Like you and I would travel to a place or travel home to somewhere. Like you don't travel back to your house, your residence right away. You go to another base and you do a demobilization thing. And there's all of these checks and balances and all this other stuff and paperwork and everything else you have to do first. And that could take upwards of a month. So when you're home, you're not home, right? So it's weird. You're able to be back in the States, but you're not able to be back in your state or back in your residence necessarily. So kind of your deployment continues a little bit. Obviously, you don't have the war that's happening around you, but you're demobilizing from that, turning in all your gear, all the fun stuff that you have to do, right? Then so there's that. And that was okay. I had a better experience than a lot of my buddies. A lot of them came back to that time to divorce papers from their spouses. Like you just got back on there. Like literally, there was a guy at the end of the gangway, like calling out names and handing people packets. Like the moment you walk back on U.S. soil, that was rough for those guys. My heart goes out to them. Like that's a hard way to come home. I fortunately did not have that, but that part of, all right, now you're done with this and you can go back to your home, your residence. Like I mentioned, I live in Central Florida, and this area, for anybody who's been here, it grows by the week. Like it's incredible here, right? So when I came back, it was like, oh, those buildings weren't there when I left. That road wasn't there when I left. This what like that was such a weird part to me, right? Because I was so used to what it was like living where I lived that when I came back and I was just in the car driving home from the airport, I'm like, I don't even recognize this place anymore, right? It almost felt foreign to me. So you have to reassimilate. You have to give yourself time to get back into the groove of things, right? And I think that's the biggest thing I could give anybody, right? Whether you're traveling the world playing music or going on a deployment or whatever the case may be, is give yourself the grace and that time to get back into what you're doing, because it's not always going to be a smooth, easy transition right back into the life that you used to live day in, day out after you've been gone for so long.
Wow. Yeah, that's some amazing advice. I totally could see where, I say a lot on this podcast. I kind of started this podcast and I interview so many different people from different walks of life and do different things, but it's all in common, right? It's like life on the road, life on the go. But like, I think that is actually some really solid advice and I really relate to that. But I've always said I've started this because I wish people would have told me this stuff when I started. It's like I wish someone back in time. So hopefully if someone's listening, whether you're a musician or maybe you're, being deployed or coming back from deployment or whatever. I mean, that is some really good advice because it does take time. Even when I just go out for a weekend, I come back, I'm so exhausted and it's like I have a whole to-do list and I feel like, it's like, oh, I missed this party, I missed that thing. And it can be overwhelming. So really solid advice, Justin. I really appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Don't dwell on what you missed because, enjoy the experience that you had. But I do think I think you need to give yourself that grace of coming back into place. Everybody kind of thinks, oh, I'll just come back and it'll be like the day I left. And that's just not the case, right? Especially if it's for an extended period of time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to ask too, if there is anybody listening here, whether that might be, a veteran, a musician, just whoever, if someone who is listening is having some, thoughts about maybe ending their life, if they're struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of these different things, what is some advice that you would give them?
I would definitely say, keep looking for help, right? I'm not saying 22Zero is the answer for every single person. There's tons of different options and things out there. It was what I found. It's what helped me more than anything else that I went through, and I went through a lot. But keep looking, right? Your life is worth it. You're worth it. The people that you impact, the people that you have an impact on, even if it's small, right? It could be, the friendly gesture that you give, the person at the store that you go to weekly, right? That they know who you are, even if it's only by face, they know who you are, right? And they would miss you if you weren't there. Even if you don't have a family, even if you just feel like you're on your own on this island, you're not, right? There's so many people around you who are here to support you, to help you out. If you are a veteran first responder, highly, 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 highly encourage checking out 22Zero. Highly recommend it. It's completely free. It costs you nothing. It's 100% confidential. It's super fast and it's very easy to go through. If you are a civilian, there are other options out there for you as well. Anxiety Wise is one that is actually a spinoff for civilians that was created by the same founders of 22Zero. So that's also an option for you. There is a cost to that. I don't know what it is, but that could be an option as well. In other words, there are options out there. Don't think that what you've done is the only options, especially if you haven't tried everything.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Keep searching, keep finding that answer, keep healing, keep going. That's great. So I am such a big fan of 22Zero, the work you guys do. Very proud to be an ambassador. I would love for you to share if you guys have anything going on at 22Zero that you'd like to talk about, but also, whether someone's looking for help, you clearly kind of already talked about that, but what if you're just a civilian that is listening and goes, man, I need to support what they're doing. Where can people find you, donate? Tell us what you guys got going on over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a quite a bit coming up. So we'll go through it at a high level for sure. So start off, if there's somebody who's listening that's like, I don't qualify for this, or I don't really have a need for it or anything like that, but you want to support, you want to help those who do have that, 22zero.org. So 22zero.org. And I'm sure it'll be in the show notes as well. But, go there, you can donate, right? We are a nonprofit. Like I said, we do not charge our veterans, first responders, their family members. We don't charge any of them anything. We want this to be super accessible for them to do that, but we still need to operate, right? We're still a nonprofit. We still we pay our coaches. We still have that stuff. So, come in and donate whatever you can. Any bit is helpful, and I would greatly appreciate, obviously, anything you guys can do from that. From a organizational standpoint, how things are, what we're doing and what's going on. We actually have 2 scheduled trainings coming up. So we've got one in August, another one in December. Trainings means we're adding more coaches, right? We have over 300 coaches currently all the way across the United States. So that's the really nice part about that is, let's say you're out west and you're hearing this and you're like, hey, I want to work with somebody in my time zone. We got somebody, right? You're in the East Coast. We've got people we've got them literally across the entire United States, and we can get you partnered up with them. So that's really great. And more trainings just means we're adding more people to continue to support this mission. The reality is 22 veterans per day is probably a low estimate, just to be very candid, right? It's probably higher. Actually, I can almost guarantee it's higher number. So, but let's assume that it's only 22, right? That it's not higher of a number. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people who need served. It's a lot of people who need to go through this. We need more people doing what we do, not less. We need more people serving, not less. We need to be able to hit that mission from 22 to 0. We need to, have a lot of people working to work with all of the people we have come through our process. So highly, highly, highly recommend, checking out those side of things. So we've got a couple trainings coming up, more coaches being added all the time. We are also actively working on, we actually have multiple studies that have already been published. Dr. Pam Arnell was championing a lot of those, which is incredible. We have a couple of more coming down the pipeline, just utilizing all of our data to showcase the effectiveness of what we're doing and how it's working and all that kind of stuff. So really exciting. It's one thing to have tens of thousands of individuals that have gone through this process and to hear their personal stories, but to aggregate all of their data, all of the information. We do at the beginning of every single person going through our process, we do a pre-assessment. We ask them questions, we identify where you are, and we use the same assessment criteria as psychologists, mental health counselors, psychiatrists. We use those exact same questionnaires so that we know that they're clinically significant. They hold the same clinical significance of any others. It's not one we just made up ourselves. So then we take those scores, we aggregate them together, and then at the end of the process, 2 to 4 sessions later, we do it again and we compare that pre and post score, right? So if they come in way up here and dealing with all the stuff they're dealing with, and then by the time they leave, they're way down here, that's incredible. I don't know the exact numbers, but for an example, typical movements in those scores of 10 points is clinically significant. Okay. We average with our studies, we're averaging 60 to 70 point moves.
Wow.
So we are extremely effective in what we're doing and how we're doing it. It's extremely fast. So it's one thing for me to sit here and tell you my story and to do all this stuff, but there is a lot of evidence behind what we're doing that showcases how well it's working for the people that we're working on. And that's a huge part of getting the word out there is in getting recognized in front of places. Dr. Pam and I went to DC. We actually were on the Hill talking to, individuals there about integrating our process and mental health for veterans and things of that nature. I mean, we're pulling at every string that we can to try to get as many people to both recognize this is an option and a good one to go through. And, if you're wanting to support what we're doing, this is where you could do it as well, right? So we want to make sure those who need the support can get it, but also those who want to back us and support us in supporting our mission, they know how to do that as well.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely be putting links to 22Zero's website, all the social media. So if you guys are listening to this episode, go check it out. If you are so inclined, please support them, donate. They do very important work. And I think you probably got that listening to this podcast, right? They're amazing and they do such incredible work. And, we're able to live in such a great country. We're able to sit and talk like this and just have that freedom of speech and be able to love who we love and do what we do. All thanks to our heroes. And so we got to make sure we take care of them though, and just not leave them hanging out there when they come back home. We got to help them as well. So, Justin, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing your heart, your story, your mission. You are awesome, my friend. And I'm so glad that our paths crossed and just so appreciate you. So thank you so much for being here. Guys,
you're so very welcome.
We're going to have you back for sure. No doubt about it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, listen, if you have listened to this podcast, if you liked it, you enjoyed it, if you resonate with this message, like, comment, share, put something in the comments. If you share this podcast, if you know someone who's struggling with something mental health related, a veteran, anybody, share it with them. This is the important thing that we do, is to hopefully get that message out there. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank y'all so much for being here. You guys, we will see you later on down the road next time. Bye.